Hey there, friends. Welcome back to Alien Love Stories, the channel where romantic misunderstandings cross galaxies and love languages aren't always what you'd expect. I'm Jess, your friendly neighborhood Earth girl married to a sweet, sometimes confusing alien named Xylo. But before we dive into today's story, let me ask you this. Have you ever felt betrayed by your Netflix account? Trust me, it's possible. Grab your popcorn, settle in, and let's unravel the strangest cheating scandal in interstellar history. It started on a perfectly ordinary Friday night, or at least as ordinary as nights get, when you're married to someone who glows faintly in the dark and whose eyes change color depending on his mood. Xylo was out at his weekly interplanetary poker night, a sacred tradition he'd adopted shortly after arriving on Earth. I never complained. Everyone deserves downtime. Besides, it meant I got the sofa and our entire Netflix watch list to myself. That evening, wrapped comfortably in a fuzzy blanket and clutching a bowl of popcorn, I eagerly clicked onto Netflix, ready to binge watch the latest season of my favorite show, Galactic Housewives. A guilty pleasure, sure, but interplanetary marriage counseling and scandalous drama were irresistible after a long week at work. But immediately, something was wrong. As soon as I clicked play, a notification flashed across the screen, smug and irritating. Too many devices are using your account right now. What the? I blinked, rereading the screen as if it might change its mind. We only had two devices, mine and Xylo's. Who's watching? I opened the viewing history and froze in horror. Galactic Housewives episodes had already been watched. Not just one or two, the entire new season. The betrayal cut deep. Whoever had done this hadn't just stolen my password. They'd stolen my joy. Panic rising, I grabbed my phone and immediately texted Xylo. Jess, babe, are you watching Galactic Housewives at poker night? Xylo, Galactic what? Number I'm losing terribly at poker. Zarblax just learned how to bluff. Scary stuff. Why? Jess, someone's using our Netflix. Did you share the password with anyone? The dots indicating Xylo's response appeared, disappeared, and reappeared, a digital dance of hesitation. Finally, Xylo. Yes, shouldn't I have? My heart sank. The betrayal now had a source, but I still couldn't fathom why Xylo, sweet, innocent, otherworldly Xylo, would share such intimate digital information. And with whom? I typed furiously. Jess. Who did you give it to? The response arrived with charming innocence. Xylo. Zuri. Remember my old friend visiting from Zeta Reticuli? She said her motel had no good shows. Sharing is caring, isn't it? Zuri. The name burned into my mind. I'd met her briefly, beautiful, glowing pink and purple hair, perfectly radiant skin, and a feline tail that swished adorably whenever she laughed. I liked her, genuinely. But this, using my Netflix to binge-watch Galactic Housewives before I got a chance? Unforgivable. My phone buzzed again, snapping me from my rising fury. Xylo. Wait, are you mad? Is sharing Netflix bad? I sighed deeply, rubbing my temples. Clearly, cultural boundaries were being crossed here. Interstellar marital counseling never mentioned streaming services as potential marital threats. I typed slowly, firmly, attempting to maintain calm. Jess, sharing Netflix without asking your spouse is considered cheating on Earth. A pause, a long, troubling pause. Then finally Xylo replied, Xylo, I cheated on you. I dropped the phone on the sofa, burying my face in my hands, both amused and exasperated. How did my relaxing Friday night become a marriage crisis? Before I could pick up my phone again, another text appeared from Xylo. Xylo, I'm so sorry, Jess. I'll come home right now. I quickly typed back, Jess, no, finish your poker game. But we definitely need to talk about Netflix boundaries when you get home. I tossed my phone aside, collapsing dramatically onto the sofa cushions. Sharing Netflix passwords, who knew it could cause an intergalactic marriage meltdown? Just then, another notification flashed on the screen, a message directly from Netflix. Welcome back, Zuri. Ready to rewatch your favorite episodes of Galactic Housewives? My eyes narrowed dangerously. Oh, Zuri, you've picked the wrong human to binge-watch battle with. Leaping up, I clicked the password settings, fingers flying across the keyboard. Two can play at this game, I muttered, changing our password to something Zuri could never guess. Hands off my alien 123. Smiling victoriously, I sank back onto the sofa. My marriage might be in unexpected turmoil, but at least I'd reclaim my watch list. For now, anyway. The next morning, I woke up to loud, insistent knocking at my door. Groggy and barely caffeinated, I stumbled across the apartment and swung open the door to reveal Chloe, my lifelong best friend and self-appointed expert in handling all romantic crises. Chloe never arrived quietly. Her fiery red curls were already bouncing, eyes wide with scandalized excitement. "Jess!" she shouted, barreling straight inside, brushing past me like a hurricane. "Did I read your text right last night? Xylo cheated?" I rubbed my temples, exhausted before the conversation had even begun. "Good morning, Chloe. Coffee first, scandal second, please?" Ignoring me entirely, Chloe continued her dramatic monologue, flinging herself onto my sofa dramatically. "Oh my God, I always knew he was hiding something behind those pretty, mood-ring eyes of his. Was it with that sparkly purple chick with the cattail? I always said she looked suspicious." I poured coffee with exaggerated care, sighing deeply. "Yes, but also no, Chloe. It's not what you think." Chloe rolled her eyes theatrically, waving her phone like damning evidence. "He gave Zuri your Netflix password, and she watched your favorite show without you. That's practically intergalactic infidelity. It's worse than physical cheating, Jess. It's emotional betrayal." I slumped onto the sofa beside her, cradling my mug. "Okay, first off, relax. It's literally just Netflix. Second, I agree it's rude, but I don't think Xylo really understood." Chloe snorted, scandalized. "Excuse me? Just Netflix? Jess, he shared your sacred password without permission. Next thing you know, he'll be handing out your Amazon Prime, your Disney Plus, your HBO. Where does the betrayal stop?" I raised an eyebrow. "I think you're blowing this out of proportion." Chloe glared dramatically, wagging a finger. "No, Jess, you're underreacting. Trust me, I've binge-watched enough reality TV to know exactly how serious this is. Today it's passwords, tomorrow he'll invite Zuri to your Hulu account, and once Hulu's compromised, it's all downhill." Despite myself, I chuckled. Chloe had a flair for turning molehills into mountains, and right now she was climbing Everest. She leaned in, eyes intense. "You have to confront him. He needs to understand that password sharing is a sacred trust, like marriage vows. Maybe worse, people have divorced for less." "Have they really?" I asked dryly. Chloe paused, thoughtful. "Well, maybe not literally, but they should. Imagine someone watching the series finale of your favorite show without you. That's trust-shattering, Jess." I sighed deeply, sipping coffee. Chloe wasn't entirely wrong. Last night, when I'd seen Zuri's name pop up, a tiny part of me felt genuinely hurt, irrationally betrayed. It was petty, sure, but it still stung. Just then, the front door opened quietly, revealing Xylo, eyes wide with caution and cheeks tinged with nervous blues and purples. His emotions always easy to read. "Jess," he said timidly, hovering at the doorway, holding a bouquet of slightly glowing blue roses. "Can we talk?" Chloe jumped up instantly, planting herself between us like a protective guard dog. "Oh, now you want to talk, Xylo? You realize sharing a Netflix password without permission is practically a crime here on Earth, right?" Xylo looked alarmed, his eyes shifting rapidly from green to yellow, a sure sign of anxiety. "Chloe, please, I didn't know it was serious." She crossed her arms, defiant. "Ignorance is no excuse, mister. You broke Jess's heart." I rolled my eyes, stepping forward to gently move Chloe aside. "Thanks, Chloe. I'll handle it from here. Xylo and I can talk alone." She hesitated dramatically before nodding reluctantly. "Fine, but if he doesn't beg for mercy, call me. I'll be right outside with ice cream and breakup playlists." I smiled, guiding her toward the door. "Noted. Thanks." After Chloe exited, finally, I turned toward Xylo, who stood sheepishly by the doorway. He held out the flowers awkwardly, his voice soft. "I am deeply sorry, Jess. On Xerolox, sharing personal access codes is a gesture of deep friendship," Zuri asked, "and it felt wrong to refuse. I took the flowers, setting them gently aside, unable to hold back a small smile. I know you didn't mean it, Silo, but here on Earth, it's different. Sharing passwords can feel like crossing a boundary. Silo's eyes softened into gentle shades of lavender. I see that now. Chloe explained loudly, many times in many creative ways. I laughed softly, taking his hand. I'm sure she did. Xylo squeezed my hand gently, looking sincerely into my eyes. Jess, please forgive my ignorance. I never meant to hurt you. Your Netflix password and your favorite shows will always remain yours alone. I promise. I sighed softly, leaning into his chest, relaxing into his familiar warmth. It's okay. Just promise you'll ask first next time. He smiled, relieved, eyes sparkling green with happiness. I promise. Also, Zuri wanted me to tell you she's very sorry and has sent a gift. I raised an eyebrow skeptically. A gift? Xylo reached into his jacket pocket, handing me a small device glowing softly in rainbow colors. It's a portable streaming account from Zeta Reticuli. Apparently, they have every Earth show ever made, and you never need passwords. I laughed, surprised. Okay, maybe I can forgive her too. Xylo smiled warmly, pulling me closer. Good, because she also invited us for dinner tomorrow as an apology. I glanced up suspiciously. Did she mention what we'd be watching? Xylo grinned sheepishly, eyes twinkling mischievously. Season 2 of Galactic Housewives, the Zeta Reticuli exclusive edition. I sighed dramatically, smiling despite myself. Fine, but if Zuri spoils it, you're both sleeping on the sofa. Xylo laughed, holding me tighter. Fair enough. Standing there wrapped in my alien husband's arms, I felt silly for ever having worried. How serious could password sharing really be? Little did I know, though, our Netflix scandal had only just begun. That afternoon, while Xylo happily cleaned the apartment as an apology, scrubbing windows with precision only a being with 4 elbows could manage, I sat cross-legged on the bed, scrolling through relationship forums and sipping lukewarm tea. My search history had become deeply unflattering. Is password sharing cheating? Signs your partner values Netflix more than you. What to do when your husband's cultural concept of monogamy involves streaming services. Some answers were comforting, others, not so much. One post read, if your partner watches Stranger Things with someone else, dump them immediately. Another, password sharing equals intimacy. It's basically digital spooning. And a third, girl, he gave her your login. Burn his planet. I was halfway through a thread titled Digital Infidelity in You when I heard Chloe's familiar knock. 3 taps and a dramatic pause. I didn't even have to open the door. She barged in with a pint of salted caramel ice cream and 2 spoons. Don't worry, she said, tossing her purse onto the chair. I'm here to talk about your betrayal trauma. I blinked. Chloe, it was a misunderstanding. We literally talked it out. She handed me a spoon. Then why were you Googling, can Netflix ruin my marriage at 3 a.m.? You think I don't have your browser synced on my device? I stared at her. You what? Chloe waved me off. Focus. Let's not change the subject. You need to own your feelings. Denial is the first stage of heartbreak. I sighed, dipping my spoon into the ice cream. Okay, fine. I was hurt. A little. Maybe. But now I'm confused. Confused how? I hesitated. Well, last night I realized something. I've been sharing my Spotify account with you for years. Technically, that's password sharing too, right? Chloe blinked. That's totally different. I'm your best friend. We've shared playlists since 8th grade. But it's still a shared account, I said slowly. Xylo could easily see that as betrayal. Chloe stared at me for a beat, then gasped theatrically, clutching her chest. Jess, are you telling me you cheated on your alien husband with me? I choked on my tea. No, don't say it like that. She stood up, pacing dramatically. This is worse than I thought. We're in a mutual betrayal triangle. You cheated emotionally with Taylor Swift playlists, and he cheated with intergalactic Real Housewives. I groaned, burying my face in my hands. Can you just be normal for 5 minutes? Chloe paused, then sat beside me. Okay, fine. Serious moment. Deep breath. She inhaled dramatically. Jess, you and Xylo are clearly trying to understand each other. That's good. But do you think you've really explained to him why it upset you? I looked down, swirling my spoon through melting ice cream. I mean, I told him it was about boundaries, but maybe I haven't explained what the show meant to me. Chloe tilted her head. Like, emotionally? I nodded slowly. Galactic Housewives was our thing, my comfort show. It was the one bit of chaos I controlled, and seeing Zuri's name pop up, it felt like someone else wore my pajamas, in my house, ate my snacks. Chloe smiled knowingly. Ah, emotional intimacy theft. The worst kind. Just then Xylo poked his glowing head into the room. Hey, I just finished reorganizing your spice rack by galactic acidity level. Also, I vacuumed the ceiling. We stared at him. He looked nervous. Too much? I smiled softly. Just the right amount of husband guilt. Come sit. He joined us on the bed, cautiously spooning some ice cream. Chloe handed him his own. Try it. It tastes like emotional closure. He licked it tentatively. His eyes turned a happy green. Delicious. I turned toward him gently. Xylo, when you shared our password, it wasn't just a login. It was something that made me feel close to you. Watching the show was our little tradition. I just wanted that space to be ours. Xylo's expression shifted to a deeper green, soft and sincere. I understand now. I didn't mean to intrude on that connection. I promise. No more sharing without permission. And I'll never watch any new episodes without you. Ever. Chloe sniffed. He's glowing green. That's his deep sincerity color. I read his species guidebook. I reached for his hand. Thank you. He squeezed back. Also, I told Zuri she's banned from our account until she completes a 12-hour streaming boundaries workshop. I blinked. That's actually really mature of you. She wasn't happy, he added. She sent a gif of a crying space chihuahua. Chloe raised her spoon. To forgiveness, boundaries, and keeping your damn passwords to yourself. We clinked our spoons together. In that quiet moment, I realized we were getting somewhere. Not just past the misunderstanding, but into a deeper understanding of each other, of cultures, of digital boundaries, of the emotional power of shared screen time. I'd survived my first real intergalactic relationship crisis. Sort of. Probably. Maybe. But one question lingered, bouncing around in the back of my brain like a rogue Netflix autoplay. Had I just become the cheater in Xylo's eyes? 3 days after the great password revelation, I woke up to a blinking light on the corner of our apartment ceiling. That light only did one thing: notify us that someone had submitted a formal request to Galactic Mediation Services, which in Xylo's world meant one thing: couples counseling. I stumbled into the kitchen in my robe, hair in a half bun, eyes still adjusting to Earth gravity. Xylo was already dressed, well, dressed in his usual floating silken wraps that shimmered with micro-meteorite threads, and he looked suspiciously calm. I squinted at him. Xylo, why is the mediation light on? He turned, smiling innocently as his eyes flickered between pastel blue and soft lavender. Good morning, my love. I scheduled us for a session with Dr. Botlove. I thought it might help clarify some of our Earth-Xerolox miscommunications. I blinked slowly. You brought in a relationship therapist, who's a robot, from your home system, to talk about Netflix? He nodded proudly. And Spotify? And trust. I opened my mouth, closed it, took a deep breath. Sure, why not? Let's talk to a therapy toaster. Moments later, our holo projector buzzed to life and materialized Dr. Botlove in the middle of the living room. He looked like a cross between a vending machine and a lava lamp, with a soothing, glitchy voice in a floating clipboard permanently hovering by his side. Greetings, romantic units. I am Dr. Botlove, certified in over 48 star systems. Initiating Session 1, Trust, Streaming, and the Spectrum of Betrayal. I sank into the couch. This is my life now. Dr. Botlove began his clinical tone. According to Galactic Relationship Framework 7.2, password sharing is classified as a Tier 3 emotional merge behavior, acceptable only within primary nesting pairs or shared snack-bonded units. Jess, were you and Zuri snack-bonded? I frowned. Snack? What? Number, we've never even split a bag of chips. Then breach confirmed, Botlove buzzed. Xylo, you violated subsection 12, unconsented account merging. Xylo looked horrified, but she said she didn't have anything to watch, and she made that face where her ears go all droopy and sparkly. Emotional manipulation via appendage-based cuteness, Botlove noted gravely. Classic zeta reticulin technique. I raised my hand. Can I just say, for the record, that this is the weirdest therapy session I've ever been in? Botlove turned slightly. Human Jess, do you feel your emotional safe space has been invaded via unauthorized streaming? I paused. Honestly? Yes, a little. Recommendation: establish digital boundary treaty immediately. Declare sacred streaming zones, password sovereignty, and shared watch list vows. Xylo turned to me, eyes glowing earnestly. I'm ready, right now. Let's take the vows. I blinked. Wait, you're serious? He dropped to one knee dramatically. Jess of Earth, will you enter into sacred streaming unity with me? Will you promise to only watch the next season of Galactic Housewives with me and me alone? To never skip the intro without mutual consent? I stared. Did you just propose a second time, but with TV clauses? Dr. Botlove's chest screen blinked approvingly. Cultural integration detected. This is healthy. Please recite the vows together. We did. Well, kind of. I, Jess, promise not to change the password out of passive-aggressive revenge. I, Xylo, promise not to share said password with glowing-tailed cat ladies or anyone outside the primary watchlist unit. I, Jess, will not secretly watch one episode ahead and pretend I didn't. I, Xylo, will not fall asleep in the middle of a season finale. Dr. Botlove clapped enthusiastically with his metallic arm clamps. Vows complete. Emotional recalibration. 72% restored. Progress adequate. Recommending celebratory popcorn and co-watching immediately. As he powered down and faded into static, I leaned into Xylo's arms, giggling. That was actually kind of adorable. He smiled softly, pulling me close. I just want to get this right, Jess, even if it means being judged by a vending machine therapist. I laughed, curling into him. You're doing great. Also, we can watch Galactic Housewives tonight if you want. He beamed. Yes, but only if we hold hands during the betrayal scenes. Deal. We sat there quietly for a moment, wrapped in a blanket of streaming vows, alien affection, and leftover popcorn. And as ridiculous as it all was, I realized something. Sometimes love is just making the rules up together and then laughing about how weird they sound when you say them out loud. For a few days, everything felt back to normal. Xylo and I had recommitted to our digital monogamy, Doctor. Botlove was officially retired, at least until one of us inevitably violated a popcorn sharing clause, and the sacred streaming vows were proudly displayed on our fridge next to a magnet shaped like a crying earth emoji. But just as peace returned to our galactic household, Chloe showed up again, this time wielding not ice cream, but vengeance. I have a plan, she said, bursting in through the door like a rom-com villain with perfect timing. A revenge plan. I looked up from the couch, where I was curled beside Xylo, watching an Earth documentary on the invention of zippers. For what? For Zuri, Chloe snapped. You may have forgiven her for stealing your Netflix first watch privilege, but I haven't. Xylo perked up nervously. I did tell her she had to go through the Streaming Boundaries workshop, Chloe smirked. And she skipped it. You know how I know? I got a spam invite to a group watch party for Galactic Housewives, Season 3, hosted by none other than Zuri, the Queen 1993. I dropped my tea. She didn't. Chloe opened her phone and showed me the flyer. Zeta Reticuli Rewatch Marathon, spoilers welcome, in bold, glittery letters. Xylo groaned and covered his face with a decorative pillow. This is bad, very bad. Zuri's turning it into a cult thing. I stood up. Okay, maybe I wasn't mad before, but she's openly mocking our vows now. This is war. Chloe cracked her knuckles. I thought you'd never say that. Here's the plan. We're going to spoil everything. Every plot twist, every affair, every surprise character death. We're going to make sure Zuri never watches TV the same way again. Xylo blinked. But isn't that a little extreme? Chloe turned slowly. Do you want peace or do you want justice? We ended up recording a video. Me, Chloe, and a very reluctant Xylo standing in front of the camera, dressed in faux ceremonial robes made from bedsheets. We lit candles, okay, battery-powered ones, and I solemnly looked into the lens. To the Zeta Reticuli watch party, I said with dramatic intensity, this is your spoiler warning, except it's not a warning, it's a declaration. Chloe held up flashcards. Episode 1, the housewife is actually a robot clone. Episode 4, the baby isn't Zarn's, it's his nemesis's. Season finale. The meteor doesn't hit. It was a hologram all along. We sent it to the party group. 5 minutes later, Zuri replied with a string of emojis. A broken heart, a popcorn bucket, and a tiny animated gif of a screaming dolphin. Xylo winced. That was harsh, I smirked. She started it. Chloe high-fived me, satisfied. We defend this house. Later that evening, Zuri herself appeared at our door, hovering slightly above the floor, tail swishing furiously, arms crossed in what I assumed was her planet's version of righteous indignation. I came in peace, she said, narrowing her glittery violet eyes at me. But you spoiled the royal twist. That was sacred lore. I crossed my arms. You watched our show without us, twice, and hosted a spoiler party. That was a declaration of war. Zuri looked at Xylo, wounded. You didn't tell me your Earthwife was so savage. Xylo smiled weakly. You probably should have read the boundaries agreement. Page 3. She sighed dramatically, floating into our living room. I brought an apology muffin. It was glowing slightly. I wasn't sure if it was from guilt or radiation. We sat. We talked. There were a few long silences, especially when Chloe said, You're lucky we didn't spoil the prequel series too. Zuri finally looked at me with genuine regret in her eyes. I didn't understand. On my world, watching someone's favorite show without them is bonding, like cooking a meal together. I nodded. On Earth, it's more like finishing someone's diary and live tweeting the ending. Zuri blinked. Oh, that's horrifying. We sat in silence for another beat. Then finally, Zuri pulled out a glowing orb the size of a grapefruit. As penance, I offer you this. It's a Zeta Reticuli streaming core. Unlimited shows from 12 galaxies, including Galactic Housewives, The Forbidden Edits. Xylo gasped. That includes the deleted scenes. I accepted it solemnly, then smiled. Okay, truce. Zuri nodded. Truce, but no more spoilers. Chloe leaned in. Unless provoked. We all laughed, even Zuri. As she left, Xylo wrapped an arm around me and whispered, You were kinda terrifying today. I grinned. Thanks, that's how Earth girls love. And just like that, balance was restored. Again. For now. The day after our spoiler war and muffin-fueled truce with Zuri, I came home to find my kitchen transformed. The lights were dimmed, the table was covered in glowing crystals and what looked suspiciously like a ceremonial fruit platter, and Xylo stood in the center wearing his formal Xeroloxian robes, the ones with the shoulder fins that fanned out like decorative lettuce. Jess, he said solemnly, tonight we sign the watch party treaty. I blinked, still wearing my grocery store sweatshirt and holding a half-melted pint of oat milk ice cream. I thought we already made peace. He nodded, stepping forward with a holographic scroll. This treaty formalizes it. No more miscommunication. No more password betrayals. Just shared popcorn and mutual episode trust. Behind him, Zuri floated in, glowing ever so slightly and wearing what I could only describe as a velvet cape covered in tiny embroidered remote controls. Chloe stood beside her, arms crossed, clearly roped into this against her will, but equally determined to enjoy the drama. What is this? I asked. Chloe rolled her eyes. Apparently, this is the official intergalactic streaming accord. They even brought a notary drone. A small metallic sphere floated over the fruit platter and beeped authoritatively. Xylo cleared his throat and read aloud. We, the undersigned, do hereby commit to the following sacred terms. No viewing of new episodes from any agreed-upon series without mutual consent. No sharing of passwords with external parties not bound by the trust circle. No spoilers, memes, or out-of-context quotes shall be distributed prior to joint viewing. He looked up at me seriously. Will you sign? I looked at Zuri. Even you? She nodded solemnly. I've downloaded a spoiler blocker extension and deleted my group chat. I'm ready to heal. Chloe leaned over. I signed, but only because they promised nachos. I sighed, setting down my ice cream and stepping forward. Fine, let's do it. The notary drone hovered over, scanned my palm, and beeped in satisfaction. The treaty glowed gold for a moment and then dissolved into a small, twinkling puff of light that smelled vaguely of buttered popcorn. Treaty accepted, it chirped. All episodes henceforth must be witnessed together, in unity. The kitchen erupted into quiet clapping, well, except for Chloe, who just popped a nacho into her mouth and muttered, "So dramatic." That night, the four of us, me, Xylo, Chloe, and Zuri, sat together on the couch, wrapped in blankets, passing around a massive bowl of interstellar cheese puffs. We hit play on Galactic Housewives, The Forbidden Edits, Season 3, Episode 1. And for the first time in what felt like weeks, I wasn't holding my breath. We laughed, we gasped, we yelled at the screen. Xylo kept translating the subtle cultural jokes that didn't make sense in English. Zuri leaned in occasionally with commentary like, "That dress? Illegal on my planet. Literal fashion crime." Even Chloe begrudgingly admitted she was hooked. Halfway through the episode, Xylo leaned close and whispered, "I like this. The shared rituals, the togetherness." I smiled, resting my head on his shoulder. "It's the human way, also the romantic comedy way." "Same thing, really," he said, smiling. Just as the credits rolled and we all reached for more snacks, the notary drone beeped and hovered into the room again. "Warning! Treaty breach detected. Unauthorized watch activity logged." We all froze. Chloe coughed. Zuri's tail flicked nervously. I turned to Xylo slowly. "What is it talking about?" Xylo frowned and tapped on his translator. "It says, someone accessed Galactic Housewives, Season 4 last night." A beat of silence. Then, Chloe gasped. "Who jumped ahead?" Zuri's eyes widened. "I didn't. I swear on my glowing bath bombs." All eyes turned to me. I blinked. "What? Number I didn't even know Season 4 was out yet." The drone beeped again. "Timestamp 2:13 Earth time. User ID CHLOE_QUEEN_42.